Nothing about that night stood out at first. I came home, settled in, and went to bed because it was already late and I had work in the morning. I was already in bed when I heard it. Slow steps outside my bedroom window. It's easy to hear things there. The house sits low to the ground, and the bedroom is right at the back. If anything moves along that path, you hear it. Each step was placed carefully, like whoever was walking didn't want to be heard. I live alone, at the edge of a small village, and the path runs behind my house where the ground drops away. It doesn't lead anywhere anymore. The old footbridge collapsed years ago, and no one ever fixed it. There's no reason for anyone to be walking there, not during the day, and definitely not after midnight. The footsteps didn't pass by quickly. They stayed there long enough that I could count them. One step, then another. Always the same distance apart. Close enough that I could picture exactly where they were without looking. I lay there awake, staring into the dark, listening, waiting for the sound to move on. When they stopped, everything went quiet again. I told myself it had to be an animal. That was the only explanation that made sense. Something crossing the path, disturbing the stones, then moving on. I held on to that thought because it was easier than any other option. Eventually, I fell asleep. Nothing strange happened the next day. By the evening, I wasn't thinking about it much anymore. Then I heard the footsteps again. This time, they stopped directly beneath my window. I lay completely still, listening as hard as I could. I didn't hear anything, no breathing, nothing that sounded wrong. And still, I had the sense that someone was standing there. When I finally worked up the nerve to look, the path was empty. There was nothing there. No sign that anyone had been standing there at all. By the third day, the whole thing felt absurd. None of it made sense, and I couldn't explain why it bothered me. It felt like I was missing something important. That night, I found out why. The footsteps came closer than before. They didn't stop at the window. They kept going, slow and steady around the house. I could follow them along the walls as they moved, always just outside. When they reached the front of the house, they paused. I lay there listening, my eyes fixed on the bedroom door. I stared at the handle, waiting for it to move. It didn't. After a long moment, the steps started again, retreating the same way they had come, fading back down the path until the silence returned. In the morning, I went outside and checked the stones. This time, there were footprints. Just one set, pressed deep into the ground, bare feet facing the house. It wasn't until I saw how close they were to the door that it really sank in. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed awake, sitting up in bed with the light off. The footsteps came back just after midnight. Same pace, same weight, same careful steps. I followed them without moving as they passed the window and went along the wall toward the back of the house. They didn't circle the whole place this time. They stopped near the back door. I could tell by the sound. The stones stopped moving, and then the steps stopped altogether. I waited for something else to happen. A hand on the door, the handle moving, anything. Nothing did. In the morning, I went straight to the back door. The lock was untouched. No marks, no damage, but the mat had been moved. Just slightly. When I lifted it, there was a single footprint in the damp soil underneath. Bare, clear, close enough that whoever stood there would have been facing the door. I didn't tell anyone. There was no one to tell without sounding unreasonable. No break-in, no threat, just footsteps and prints that could be explained away if someone tried hard enough. That night, I left the lights on. The footsteps still came. They crossed the stones faster this time, more directly. They went straight to the back of the house and stayed there longer than before. I could hear the weight shift, the sound of someone adjusting where they were standing. And then I heard something else, a foot pressing against the bottom step. I didn't move. Then there was another step. I held my breath without meaning to. They were on the porch. I waited for the door to open. I waited for the handle to turn. It didn't move. After some time, the footsteps retreated. In the morning, the dirt along the threshold was disturbed. It was scuffed, like someone had been shifting their feet while standing there. At the edge of the porch, where the wood met the stones, there was a shallow mark pressed into the ground. They had been there for a while. By then, I was sure there wasn't any way to explain it that made sense. I stopped trying. I did think about calling the police. I thought again about telling someone, but nothing had actually happened yet, and I couldn't see how to explain it without sounding stupid. So I didn't do anything. The next night, the footsteps came closer. I'd been sleeping less each night anyway, so I was just lying there waiting for them. I didn't move. I stayed there because I didn't know what else to do. This time, they didn't bother with the path. I heard them on the porch almost immediately. My pulse started thudding, hard enough that I could feel it. Then I heard the next sound, and that was when it really sank in. I could hear fingers moving along the edge of the door, feeling along the frame, slow and careful. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, waiting. They didn't try the door. The sounds stopped, the footsteps withdrew, and the house went quiet again. In the morning, I stood in the kitchen for a long time, looking at the back door. I remember trying to decide whether going outside was a mistake I could still avoid. When I finally unlocked it and stepped out, everything felt still. The path looked the same as it always did. Then I saw it. A large X carved into the upper part of the door, high enough that I couldn't miss it. The cuts were deep, catching the light. 2 clean lines crossing, placed there deliberately. I ran my fingers over it without thinking, and felt how deep the cuts were. Someone had chosen that door. I just didn't know why. I stayed inside the rest of the day. My mind kept jumping to different scenarios. Every one of them led somewhere different, and none of them felt right. That night, there were no footsteps, no sound at all. In the morning, the X was still there. Nothing else had changed. That was when it sank in. The quiet didn't feel like relief, and whatever the X meant, it was meant for me. I don't know when it will happen, or what it will look like. I don't know if there will be more footsteps, or if whatever comes next will come without any sound at all. But I know this much. They could have gone further. They chose not to, and whatever happens next doesn't depend on me being asleep. The days have gone on since then. I still go to work. I still come home. Nothing else has happened, but I don't move through the day the same way anymore. I listen more than I used to. I notice how quiet the house gets at night. And every time nothing happens, I'm left wondering whether it's over, or if it's just not the time yet.